I can ask everyone to take their seats. We will get underway.
I hear you. I understand. Boy, they're responsive to him, aren't they?
Great of him.
Authority.
Cindy, will you call the roll, please?
Curator Bradley?
Here.
Curator Covington? Here. Curator Cups?
Yes.
Curator Downing?
Yes.
Curator Good?
Here.
Curator Henriksen? Curator Phillips?
Here.
Curator Ponder?
Here.
And Curator Stewart.
Here.
Okay.
Thank you. We are in order, and I believe the first order of business is my report.
There we go.
I don't know if I'm used to this setup. We seem to be a little further spread out than we've been in the past, but it does give us a little more room. I first want to thank the board for electing me chair a year ago. It's been an enjoyable and interesting year. We've had a little bit of conflict here and there, but we've been able to work through that. I think we have a great board, one that can handle differences and work together and move forward. We welcomed 3 new board members this year: Ann Covington, who I've known for many years, and John Phillips, Mike Pounder, who I've gotten to know to some extent since they've come on the board. It's been a year of some staff transition. Nikki Kravitz, who was a kind of a real piece of the rock of the administration of the university, has retired, and we miss her wisdom, but as in all cases, we are moving forward, and of course, we've wished her well in her retirement when she left. I've had some additions. Hank Foley, who's come on board this year and will be moving us forward. It was a year of, the 50th celebration of the 4-campus university system, as well as the 50th anniversary of Kansas City as part of the university, and their 80th anniversary overall, and of course the 50th Jubilee here at UMSL, which has been a big event ongoing throughout the year. I just I want to say again how great it's been to work with everybody, and I really mean that. The vice presidents are great to work with, very helpful. Steve Owens is always a great asset to all members of the board and to the university, and very helpful to me as a chair during this year. Now, if any of you are thinking about running for chair in the future, I will point out that it will probably double the time you normally spend on board issues. I think Dave Bradley would probably agree to that, and Don will see this coming, or has seen this coming, because he's been a very active vice chair. With that, I want to mention the theme for my year as chair, of course, was economic development and research. It took a little curve along the way. We had some personnel changes, but I think it's back on track now. I'm going to now call on Hank Foley to come up and speak to some of those issues.
Good morning. I'd like to add my thanks to everyone else's, to Tom and to his staff for a terrific meeting and for wonderful hospitality. And Tom, you're an impresario of everything, including the piano. You just amaze me. That was terrific last night. Thank you very much. I'm not sure impresario is the right word as I think about it, but you are sort of an impresario. All right. Chairman Good, thank you very much for asking me to say a few words about research this morning. What I'd like to do is give some perspective on research and how we got to this place as a public research university where research is really fundamental and core to the enterprise. Then give a short snapshot of where we are at this time, and then have a brief discussion of where we might like to go over the next few years. So with that in mind, let's get started. At all large land-grant and public research universities, the best ones especially, they are expert, really, at the integration of these three phases of their work, namely research coupled to teaching, coupled to outreach and engagement. It's quite a legacy, and it's one that I'll emphasize throughout the talk, because it does distinguish us as universities from four-year colleges and other kinds of schools, because research is really at the core of everything that we do and really lifts that which we do. And I hope to illustrate that as we go through this morning. So the first question is, why do we have this legacy? And this will be brief because I think most of you know the answer. But if we go back to 1862, and Justin Smith Murrell, who was a representative from the great state of Vermont, he and others realized that they were on the beginning of a new century for the United States, and we were growing fast, and we needed a more educated public. And the Morrill Act really set out the land grants as a way to make that happen. And I'll come back to this, but this goes all the way back 150 years now. It's really an exceptional idea. It's an exceptional idea in the fullest American sense of exceptionalism, and it was way ahead of its time. The next piece of this is the Hatch Act. William Henry Hatch, a good Missourian, put this through in 1887 under Grover Cleveland, and the key was to create a series of agricultural experimental stations. Whenever you're doing experiments, you're doing research, and this is really what embodied research in that day and age. It was really research applying the fundamental sciences, especially chemistry, to agriculture as they knew it at that time. And the transition in agriculture was really phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal over the next 50 years. We had the Green Revolution, we had artificial fertilizer, we really began to understand how plants grow, we began to do gene juggling at a time well before we understood what genes are really made of, and we have people like Hatch to thank for that. Similarly, in 1914, we have the Smith-Lever Act. That's Smith, that's Lever. Lever kind of looks like his name, I think, kind of like a simple machine. And in 1914, they established a system of cooperative extensions services, and they're connected to all of the land-grant universities. These are a legacy of that era, and they're something that we continue to support and we continue to use to this day to drive information out to the field to regular folks. It's informal education, and it's really a backbone of the American system. So if we look at our legacy research strengths, what we find is that much of what we do at public land-grant universities is very much use-inspired research. I hope you could see this, but this is a set of quadrants that people use to categorize research these days. Rather than trying to talk about fundamental or basic applied research, it's better to really look at it this way, and that is on the x-axis, what we have is a consideration of use, from low use to high use, and then on the y-axis, a question of fundamental understanding, from high to low. So someone like Niels Bohr, who's in the upper left-hand quadrant, studied the structure of the atom. Very, very fundamental research with no apparent application at all at the time. Of course, since then, in the last 90 years, we've seen enormous application of what he brought forth and people like him brought forth. But we call that essentially the Bohr quadrant because it's highly fundamental, and at the same time, its application is not clear. At this other end, we have Thomas Edison, who did very applied research. It was not tremendously fundamental, quite the opposite, but it was incredibly useful. We are heirs to the legacy of Edison in many ways when you look around just at this room. The quadrant that's perhaps the most interesting is the Pasteur quadrant. And if any of you know anything about Louis Pasteur, his work was truly use-inspired research. It was medical research, but it was fundamental, basic research, all at the same time, trying to solve specific problems. And his legacy is actually as profound as the legacy of the other two. That's where we find the land-grant universities, where their special niche has been over the last 100 years, is in that sort of use-inspired research that really grew out of the agricultural experimental stations and then began to fold over and flow over into everything else we do. I'll come back to that at the very end of the talk when we think about the future. So this legacy of research outreach and teaching is kind of written into the DNA of our public research universities. And I'd like to say, and I saw this yesterday in one of Tom's slides, and I was very happy to see it. He referred to himself, or someone referred to them as an urban or metropolitan land-grant. And I really like that idea very much. So the four institutions, all four institutions that make up the University of Missouri, are each heirs to that land-grant legacy in their own way, with their own missions and in their own context. And remember, the key then is we've got a university research enterprise which is built to create new knowledge through invention and innovation, bring it out to the field for practical use, and as quickly as possible back into the classroom to advantage our students. Go back to the Morrill Act with me for a minute, because the Morrill Act is really a jam-packed statement. It's amazing how much is in there. I'll just quote this part. Without excluding other scientific and classical studies, which today means the core sciences and things like the humanities, and including military tactic, which today is ROTC, to teach such branches of learning as are related to agriculture and the mechanical arts being engineering, in such manner as the legislatures of the states may respectively prescribe, in order to promote the liberal and practical education of the industrial classes, that's access, and that was new, in the several pursuits and professions in life, and that included medicine, law, and business. It's really quite a profound statement when you take it apart and really look at it. And that's the basis of these kinds of schools, including the University of Missouri. Now, if we get this right, then we spiral upward. We really have tremendous success. And I think much of the legacy of the 20th century's success in America really comes back to the foundational aspects of this educational system. We were really the first to take the mechanical arts seriously. We pushed the private schools to actually take up engineering. If you go to Princeton to this day and you look for the engineering campus, it's kind of hidden over in the corner over there. Yale can never quite decide whether they want to have an engineering school, and Harvard has the School of Applied Science. So this was a very good thing for the United States. It's something we, as members of this community of public land grants, should be very proud of, to be a part of that legacy. Now, when it works well, it works really well for students. About 3 years ago now, to our surprise, the Wall Street Journal did an analysis of the schools that were rated the highest by corporate recruiters. Now, why do I care about that? Well, I care about that because that's fundamental to student success. Most students who come to the university are hoping at the end that it will pay off for them. What's interesting about this list is 20 of the top 25 schools are public research universities. So we've got a few private schools that snuck in: Carnegie Mellon, Brigham Young, Notre Dame, MIT, and the University of Southern California. But the rest of them are all public. And you're probably saying, well, what about Cornell? And everybody knows Cornell is both public and private. It's the land grant in New York, so it's Cornell University, the State University of New York at Ithaca, as I like to call it, but they don't like it when I say that. So I'll just share that. You should use that advisedly if you care to. MIT, by the way, is an urban land grant. It holds the land grant in Massachusetts, which is an interesting history. So land grant schools are incredibly successful and have been for a number of years, for 100 years or so. This is just an interlude to say, now I want to shift. I want to shift from history to where we are at the University of Missouri and where we'd like to go. First of all, we have to talk about research funds. Now, for some of my academic colleagues, this is not what they like to hear because it's just money. But money actually matters an enormous amount, as you know, and it's one thing that we can count. So why do we care about research funds? First of all, research is the enterprise that creates new knowledge, understanding, and opportunity. Money fuels that enterprise. Overall funding is directly tied to research activity, and research activity in turn is directly tied to academic stature. You don't have to be at the top, but you have to be comprehensive and fairly significant size. Federal research expenditures, or FREs, bring dollars to the state, something often overlooked but incredibly important. Those are dollars that otherwise would not be in the state. Research is expensive. We know that, so we have to manage it and steward it very well, and it undergirds the whole enterprise. The last piece here is a quote that surprised me a few years ago when a former senior VP for finance and business, who's now at the Smithsonian, who had been at Columbia and Caltech, I was prattling on about research and scholarship, and finally said, Hank, enough. Research is a business. And I thought, oh my God, it's come to that. But at any rate, that's how some people look at it. So we do have to look at the numbers. Now, if we look at our National Science Foundation report of expenditures per annum, this is what we see. Between 2000 and 2012, we've risen from about 222 million as a system to over 327 million. If we look at this a little more carefully, what we see is that here, in the first few years, there was tremendous growth. And in fact, had we stayed on that kind of a path, we'd be up around 500 million. Now, I'll show you how we could get there in the next few years. But in here, we've stayed fairly constant at about 327 million, or 325. Right now, that puts us in the middle of the pack in many ways. We're ranked about 87th in the nation overall. That puts us in the middle of the SEC, and it puts us a bit about in the middle of the schools that are ranked by this means. So I would say, at this point, looking to the future, what I would like to see is growth. Growth, I think, would be a good thing for the system, and we could do it. So hypothetically, just stick with me for a minute. If you think about this chart, what I've said is let's let the blue line represent, in this year, the school that's currently ranked 65th. Turns out that they're in here at about $370, $380 million. Here's MU in the system. We're in here at about, I think I said this was about 240. This is about 327 or so. Now, how could we get to where we'd like to be? Well, let's assume we were to go up by 10% for 7 years. We know if we went up 7% in 10 years, we'd double. If we go up 10% in 7 years, we'll also do that. So let's assume that this blue line, the 65th school, continues on a trajectory of about 3% growth a year, but we're able to bring out 10% growth a year. Well, you can see what would happen. In 10 years, we'd be up here with some of the larger universities, well over $600 million a year as a system, and Mizzou, MU, would be in here at about $450 million a year. That would be a terrific growth trajectory for us. Challenging, but I think doable. And in fact, I think something that would show tremendous health and vigor should we be able to maintain that or exceed it going forward. Now, to the other schools that are in the system, MU very much wants to remain within the AAU. And I think this kind of trajectory is a trajectory that would ensure that. And for the other schools in the system, if MU stays in the AAU, that's good for all of us. We want that to happen. So I think it's crucial. All boats rise on a rising tide as we do this, which means we need to work together also. So I'll leave this here and just say, therefore what? And the therefore what is just a few things, suggested actions that we and the team really need to think about with the chancellors. Creating new and additional cross-cutting, highly interdisciplinary research institutes. For those of you who have been out to MU and you've seen the Bond Center, it's phenomenal. That is a terrific center, highly interdisciplinary, and one that has a tremendous legacy. Could we reproduce that with a few other centers in other areas? That's the question that the Chancellor will have to answer and others will have to answer. I think we can, and I'd like to work on that if we can. Interdisciplinarity has been the key to success for the top schools now for about 10 or 15 years. We do it. We probably need to do it even better. We need to hire outstanding researchers. System-wide, if we had 20 or so people like that who are NAE, NAS, AAAS, American Philosophical Society caliber people around the system, it would have a tremendous buoying, lifting effect, particularly if we put clusters of people around them, younger people, and invest like we mean it. We also will have to continue to work on the state of Missouri as our partner. This is crucial. We need their support, and I think we can gain it as we continue to articulate a vision. Creating new and lasting partnerships with industry is something you've heard me speak about, and I continue to work on, and we're making good progress around the system on this. Rolla's way out ahead. MU is coming up, changing some of their practices. We want recruiters coming here. We want them to see what we do, experience at our schools, and really come back looking for even more every year. I want to create a system-level pool, perhaps of allocation of matching funds. It's a bit of a detail. We're working on it. Do development in the next campaign aimed at enhancing research prowess. That's a question. Could it be done? I think it can be. And then the last couple are use the strengths of all 4 schools as a system to support and grow collaboration. If we collaborate and cooperate versus compete with everyone else, collaborate with each other, I think we would do very, very well. Raising the stature of our grad programs is important. And then there are lots of other things that I won't go into. But those are really, I think, the key highlights. And it's time, I believe, now for action. So the last slide here is this one, which is to say these are the quadrants. If we look at the Ivy League schools, it's some of the top schools. They're excellent in this quadrant. They're pretty good over here, particularly in medicine. They're not very good here. I think we need to grow in all 3. We need to continue to sustain and grow our basic sciences. We need to continue to sustain and grow this part that's in the Pasteur quadrant. And I think there's a huge opportunity for us to get into the applied research area and to do even more in the future. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, Chairman Good. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the curators, and I'd be happy to take comments or answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions? I guess not at this point. Thank you for your report. I think you set a high standard for the university. And hopefully we'll move forward and reach that standard. Our next scheduled is the report of the president. Tim, would you move forward?
Good morning. Thank you, Hank, for that update on research. As a leader, when you put up a chart that says we should grow 10%, my response is, why not 15? But in all seriousness, I think you've challenged us all to collaborate and to increase research across the 4 campuses in a way that improves everything that we do, and I applaud you for that. I also want to thank Chairman Good, and thank you for the service this past year as board chair, which, as you just illustrated, came during a very momentous year of the University of Missouri system. So thank you, Wayne. Also wanted to take a moment to recognize another one of our curators this morning, Mr. David Stewart. In case you did not hear, David will be inducted next spring as a member of the Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans, which is a nonprofit educational organization honoring the achievements of outstanding individuals and encouraging youth to pursue their dreams through higher education. In the announcement, the CEO of Horatio Alger Association stated, "We speak often of the American dream, and no individual better captures the power of that dream than David Stewart, who has overcome adversity to achieve incomparable success and to serve as a role model for the power of perseverance." Please join me in recognizing Curator David Stewart. I want to start with an additional note of gratitude. Recently, we paused as a nation to pay tribute to the men and women who serve our country in the military. As president, I share great pride in the efforts across our campuses to connect with our veterans to help them build great futures. We currently have 1,289 veterans enrolled on our 4 campuses, which is a 54% growth in the last 5 years. Here at UMSL, as well as UMKC, we have veteran resource centers that provide assistance in the increasing number of vets who enroll. In Columbia, the MU Veterans Center has been nationally recognized for its work serving as a one-stop shop for returning veteran students, from registration to housing, financial aid, and it even has a special chapter of the Alumni Association. Just last week, MU was ranked at number 12 nationally among the top 25 best colleges in the nation for veterans, according to the U.S. News and World Report, ranking of over 200 universities in our nation. At Missouri S&T, we share a close connection with the Fort Leonard Wood base nearby, have a significant number of veterans completing their education, and have a multifaceted program to support them. And I'm also proud of the fact that the University of Missouri system is a founding partner in the Missouri Veterans History Project, which collects oral histories of our veterans to share with the State Historical Society and U.S. Library of Congress. We are very fortunate to have these dedicated veterans, and we all owe them the deepest thanks as we approach this season of giving thanks. I will once again be touching on our 6 strategic priorities this morning as I go through this report, key priorities that guide us in how we make decisions and how we maintain excellence in everything we do. First up, strategic planning. Earlier this year, we passed our first budget firmly rooted in the strategic planning process. This, of course, is a new milestone for the system. We have now changed a 50-year-old paradigm of allocating state appropriations based on historical percentages. This next significant step forward in this process is the new brochure that you've got in front of you that we have produced, which will serve as a compass to guide our future decisions. This document represents a culmination of all of our hard work on strategic planning and is a compelling representation of each campus's strategy statements. It's designed to draw readers in and then to direct them to the specific campus strategy pages and websites for more detailed information. I invite all of our esteemed board members, chancellors, and general officers to make wide use of this publication, sharing it with your constituents, alumni, legislators, members of your communities. We are really moving forward in a brave new strategic planning world, and we want these key stakeholders to be informed of that fact. In addition, we have updated our system and campus websites to reflect the most updated strategic plans with details. If you visit the UM System Education Strategic Plan website, you'll find links to each of the campus plans as well as the full plan of the UM System Administration. We've also included information about the planning process, such as the criteria for strategic financial investment and a comprehensive timeline. I'm also pleased that we have added a new strategic planning dashboard to monitor progress on our collective plan metrics, as well as our annual progress on state performance funding measures and accountability measures. This is all part of our continued commitment to be transparent and accountable about our new approach, and it's also consistent with our next strategic priority, which is effective communication of our value and importance. We continue to work diligently to strengthen our university in a variety of ways. Our commitment toward driving the message of the value and importance of higher education, as well as the University of Missouri's prominent role in every Missouri community, has never been stronger. Our resumption of the Show Me Value Tour took us to Webb City, Joplin, Jackson, Cape Girardeau this fall, and we have visits lined up for California and Boonville in the next 2 weeks. Next calendar year, we plan to take the tour to some of our metropolitan areas, including St. Louis, Kansas City, and Springfield. Wherever we have gone on this tour, we've received an enthusiastic welcome from local citizens and community leaders. Very receptive middle school students, audience, and quite frankly, very, very positive media coverage of our message. These efforts are starting to make a difference as we've received requests from people across the state for us to bring the tour to their communities, which is a first. I've also done 12 interviews with outstate newspapers, 6 op-eds that have appeared in newspapers across the state just since our last board meeting, all on the value of higher education and the university's presence in the state's 114 counties. From the kickoff of the Show Me Value Tour this spring to now, we have increased the positive news stories about the system from 8 in the spring to 35 this fall, which is a 300% increase. Our statewide communication strategy is working, and we'll expand it further in the new year. Of course, we couldn't be much a factor in the lives of our communities and all Missourians without the next strategic priority, which is attracting and retaining the best and the brightest. And that is, of course, the goal of our search for a new chancellor at the University of Missouri, which is nearing a conclusion. We will announce the hiring of a dynamic leader that befits the university's elite status as a land-grant AAU institution very soon. Additionally, under this strategic priority, our benefits task force continues to meet regularly and makes great progress, including interviewing key campus and healthcare leaders to understand how their recommendations will affect our ability to recruit and retain outstanding faculty and staff. And we have implemented a streamlined and paperless hiring process called EPAF, which stands for the Electronic Personnel Action Form, which is causing an enormous savings in productivity and reduced paperwork and streamlining the onboarding for our new employees. Next up is our Operational Excellence Initiative, where we continue to create a culture of continuous process improvement around our shared services principles. This spring, we targeted and funded a system-wide comprehensive student retention initiative, which is vital to the future of the University of Missouri, given that 2 of our 5 priorities, performance funding priorities from the state revolve around student retention and graduation rates. The effort has already produced a planned implementation program comprised of a set of tools that will provide integrated advising and early alerts to assist the university in promoting student persistence to graduation. This is the first time in the history of the University of Missouri system that we'll be implementing a single set of solutions shared by all 4 campuses to improve student retention. This not only saves us money, but allows us to share the best practices among users of this system. We are now collaborating on mission-critical areas like student retention, and it is very, very exciting. Another mission-critical area is our faculty accomplishment system. We are preparing for the implementation phase of this upgraded system. It's also known as the FAS system, which will provide faculty members with an improved single and convenient place to keep current their achievements in teaching, research, scholarly publications, creative works, and service activities. Our next strategic priority is research and economic development. You heard from Dr. Hank Foley, he's now fully on board. He's making good waves. We're looking at where to invest that will result in improved research and economic development outcomes for all 4 of our campuses. As you heard in Hank's report, there's a range of opportunity across the system to truly improve our research return on investment. We have a clear need for change in order to see the results we'd like to see in our research numbers and overall performance among our peers. I'm confident that under Dr. Foley's direction, we'll see these changes start to happen, especially with the help of our strategic plan, where campuses can truly use the plan as an opportunity to hone in on those attainable goals. We will also remain committed to innovative instruction. As you saw in yesterday's presentation, e-learning continues to flourish for the University of Missouri by fostering better learning, access, and retention. While we continue to focus our campus e-learning efforts to ensure that they are consistent with each campus strategy, and in doing so, this initiative will continue to attract the resources and become a competitive advantage in attracting the best and brightest students in the marketplace. I want to finish up by looking ahead to some compelling and concerning issues that will be affecting our university for years to come. As many of you are probably aware, today is a sad anniversary in America's history. As 50 years ago today, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. It just so happens that the last piece of legislation that was signed by President Kennedy a few weeks before his death was the Community Mental Health Act, which was his vision that those living with mental illness should have access to humane and effective treatment in their communities. The Community Mental Health Act helped change our country's mental health services forever. But 50 years later, here in Missouri, there is still much work to be done to ensure that people living with mental illnesses have access to quality treatment. For example, according to a recent survey by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, there's a critical shortage of qualified mental health professionals here in the state of Missouri. The report stated that the Missouri Department of Mental Health facilities have significant shortages of nurses, psychiatrists, and psychologists. And recruiting behavioral analysts is particularly challenging, as 90 of the Missouri 114 counties lack even one behavior analyst. Here at the University of Missouri System, we take pride ourselves in understanding the major needs of our state and stepping up to help provide solutions. As an illustration, when the state faced major shortfalls in the number of doctors, pharmacists, and nurses, we proposed a solution with Caring for Missourians program, which increased our capacity to train and produce the additional medical professionals to meet this critical need. And the numbers back it up. Just as a reminder, we committed to our great state of Missouri that we would produce 293 new healthcare providers, and in fact, at the end of the Caring for a Missourian initiative, we produced 351. So it's another example of when the state of Missouri invests in the University of Missouri System, we give them a return on that investment and then some. But while we're ready to work with the state leaders on a plan that would assist all higher education and institutions in our state to increase the number of mental health professionals in Missouri, we continue to face a significant obstacle. For our system to meet the goals of producing more healthcare professionals, be it mental health or otherwise, there needs to be a solution to our increased need for more space. With ongoing increases in enrollment and funding that has been flat, not to mention $1.3 billion of accumulated backlog of maintenance and repair across our campuses, our system currently faces a major capital needs crisis. It is imperative that we look for ways to solve this problem, whether it's 50-50 cost share, bonding, or some other solution, but it needs to be addressed. Without a solution to our facility shortages, we're going to have to make some difficult choices. Our last resort, let me repeat, our last resort, and one we choose not to have to use, would be raising tuition to meet these needs. Alternatively, do we make smaller class sizes so that we're able to meet the state's need by educating more doctors? What do? That's what's in front of us. Addressing the capital project needs of our 4 campuses should be a priority for the state going forward. This will be a significant theme for us in the coming year and beyond, and I will provide more details at the January Board of Curators meeting that will be held in Columbia. That's because the University of Missouri System has a proud tradition of our innovation and research expertise, helping the state of Missouri to solve problems and improve the lives of average Missourians. We are eager to work with the state leaders and play that role once again, but we just need the resources to do so. So in closing, I want to once again thank our veterans, commend our 4 campuses for the quality of work that they did in strategic planning, stress once again we have some difficult challenges to meet as a system, and to meet those challenges in terms of capital projects, we could be facing some hard choices in the years to come. In the meantime, we will continue to engage with regular Missourians about the higher value of education and the importance of our university and how it touches every person in every county on a daily basis. As 213 comes to a close, I want to thank everyone here for the work you do to help move us forward as a system, and I appreciate your continued support as we all work together to strengthen the University of Missouri system and our great state of Missouri. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Wolf. Our next order of business is to take up consideration of the merger of the Beacon and St. Louis Public Radio in St. Louis. Tom, I think you're going to give us a short presentation along with Dean Mills, I understand.
Again, welcome to University of Missouri St. Louis, to the Board of Curators and everyone else associated with the University of Missouri system. And it's great to have you on our campus yesterday and today. I'd like to make an exciting proposition to you, and this deals with an entity that we have in the Grand Center area of the city. Grand Center is the mecca, if you will, for the performing arts and a number of other organizations in St. Louis. Several years ago, we established a new presence in Grand Center. At their request, the Grand Center board approached us and said, UMSL needs a presence in Grand Center, and we actually built a building there, partnered with a developer to do that, and the Board of Curators, in its wisdom, approved us moving forward on that. This building contains our campus radio station, St. Louis Public Radio, NPR, and also it has academic space, particularly in the College of Fine Arts and Communication, and particularly focused on the area of emerging technologies and emerging media. There's a picture right here of the building in Grand Center. It's connected to KETC, which is 9 Network, which is public television, and then right behind it is the Sheldon, and we're in the process of creating a plaza right now that's going to be connecting both the radio station and the television station. Let's see. Hey, okay, thank you. As I mentioned, it is our Emerging Media Studies program. We have a few other things in there academically. For example, the University of Missouri St. Louis manages 7 charter schools, and we're actually in the process of selectively adding 1 or 2. And our headquarters for the management of the charter schools is also located in the building in Grand Center. Well, if we can move on. Our proposal is to actually integrate The Beacon, which is an online newspaper, and which is actually right now, their facilities are located, well, at home. People work at all sorts of places, but also in the building that houses KTC, and also merging them, if you will, with the campus radio station, which is owned by the Board of Curators. This is going to bring together several outstanding institutions. And certainly the University of Missouri St. Louis system. Within that, our College of Fine Arts and Communication, the School of Journalism from Mizzou, the Beacon, and also, of course, our campus radio station. We see this as cutting edge, something that's, we have other people across the nation watching this, cutting edge with respect to media, with respect to presenting news, and with respect to how we integrate all together with the various outlets, whether it's printed, audio, visual. You'll have to move me. The proposal fits well with the University of Missouri St. Louis's strategic plan. We have, yesterday I talked to you when we did our master plan about 3 themes, particularly with 2 of the themes, community partnerships and also with academic program enhancement. What we'd like to do with this is merge our 2 news forces, if you will. The campus radio station has been planning to expand dramatically is a news staff. With its special emphasis on critical news analysis and particularly looking at local news. And we currently have 13 on the staff for news at St. Louis Public Radio. What we want to do is merge that with those from the Beacon, and also we have additional members of the Beacon staff that work on development. I mean, the Beacon has been running on development and gifts, and we want to continue that, of course, and merge that with our own development staff. I do want to mention in particular Margie Freivogel serves as the editor right now of the Beacon. She will serve as the editor of the new merged entity, leading the news operations. She's had 34 years of experience with the Post-Dispatch as a reporter, editor, and Washington correspondent. And she's received recently the Missouri Honor of Medal for distinguished service in journalism from the MU School of Journalism. Margie's here, so Margie, just raise your hands. It's great to have you in the audience. Okay. With the combined news operation, this formality, and this is aside from the academic component that we're also building, but that just the entity itself of the news operations, the Beacon with St. Louis Public Radio, is not going to take any university resources. We're doing this on philanthropy, and we've been able to raise close to $3 million that will sustain this operation for the next 5 years. In addition, we'll augment this from underwritings, as we do now, digital and on air, and various kinds of events, fundraising events and other events. I can't even read this myself, but it's this is an array of partners that around the region that are associated with this, and I see School of Journalism, the Reynolds Journalism Institute, the St. Louis Regional Chamber, Grand Center Enterprise Holdings, Civic Progress, Danforth Plant Science, and the list goes on of entities that are partnering in this endeavor, particularly with this merged entity. Now, what are some of the benefits from this? Well, first, it's creating a national business model for a sustainable, multi-platform news operation that can provide in-depth coverage of issues important to a vibrant democracy. Expanding philanthropic ties to the combined operation of the UN system, as well as enhancing our brand, the university's brand, locally and nationally. Interesting, when you look at the fundraising associated with the two entities, the Beacon historically has tended to attract larger gifts, fewer of them, but larger gifts. Our campus radio station, highly successful in fundraising by any measure, attracts more smaller gifts, but a lot of them. So we think we're going to get some synergy here and some enhancement when we bring together these two different kinds of fundraising operations. This is particularly exciting to me, and that is the collaboration that we're developing with the MU School of Journalism, the preeminent school of journalism in the world, and I just couldn't be more pleased. And certainly I give a lot of credit to the chair of our board and our president of our system suggesting and urging us to have this kind of a partnership. Some more benefits: students, both at MU, students at University of Missouri St. Louis, will learn to apply issue-based journalism in an urban setting across multiple delivery platforms. This will be a research arena and teaching arena for the School of Journalism that plans to expand more into its urban setting, and then we get to capitalize in our College of Fine Arts and Communication and our programs there from the expertise of the School of Journalism. It will allow UMSL and MU to expand course offerings in social media, both in person and online, public relations, nonprofit business management, and so forth. And I guess this is kind of like writing the book on this. When we brought Express Scripts headquarters to our campus 4 or 5 years ago, I never could have dreamed of everything that's now taking place because of that. I think that's what we're going to see here, particularly with the School of Journalism and the overall combination of the Beacon and St. Louis Public Radio. I'd like to bring now to the podium for a few minutes my colleague in crime with this, and this is Dean Mills. His first name's Dean, but he also happens to be the Dean of the School of Journalism, and we've been collaborating along with Dean Gene Miller, who's back there from the College of Fine Arts and Communication, and Dean's going to talk about the research and the academic component of this enterprise.
Everything he just said. Thank you very much. I really, Chancellor George has said it all. I would just add that we're very excited about this collaboration in Columbia. When he called me a few months ago and suggested the possibility, it took me all of, I think, 20 seconds to say yes, yes, yes. We brought a delegation down to Grand Center to discuss it, faculty and administrators, and they are all enthusiastic about this possibility. Certainly it's going to benefit our students. It'll give students from the MU campus a chance to work in an urban setting, which obviously they don't get at our Columbia operations. I personally am the most excited about the research possibilities. The Reynolds Journalism Institute fits in the Dr. Foley's quadrant model there. We fit very much into that Edison quadrant, maybe every once in a while shading up into the Pasteur quadrant. But the Reynolds Journalism Institute engages in applied research to figure out ways to make journalism work better for democracy. This is going to be an important national experiment in that to see if a business model can be developed that will support public affairs journalism. We're very excited about the collaboration. Very grateful that you've given us this opportunity.
I'm done.
Thank you, Tom. Cindy, would you hand out another copy of the packet that we looked at yesterday in closed session? This is the transfer agreement that we went over yesterday in executive session, and I think, basically informally approved at that time. On the second page is a resolution that we need to adopt today to move this project forward. And if I could have a motion on that resolution, we will take that up.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any questions or any discussion regarding this issue?
There is. I'd like to make a comment. I think we're all very much in favor of it, and it's a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful example of the systemness strengths of being able to take one of the jewels of the system, the journalism school, and combine it with opportunities here in St. Louis in an exciting national project. Part of it is being done on the promised support of the St. Louis business community. Some money in hand, some pledges, and a 5-year runway. But I do want to say that we hope that at the end of the 5 years, it will be sustainable, that the experiment will prove to be fruitful, and that we will find ways of having funded good journalism even on a local and regional basis, which is now being lost with the demise of newspapers. But at least 3 of us will be on the board 5 years from now, and I just wanted to make a record that we'll be looking at the sustainability of that. So I thought that comment needed to be made and put into the record. Very much in favor of it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other comments? Not. Cindy, would you call the roll?
Curator Bradley?
Yes.
Curator Covington?
Yes.
Curator Cups?
Yes.
Curator Downey?
Yes.
Curator Good?
Aye.
Curator Phillips?
Yes.
Curator Ponder?
Aye.
And Curator Stewart?
Aye.
Okay, you have 8 votes in favor.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next order of business is the consent agenda.
I would move we adopt the consent agenda.
Second. Is there any questions or comments on any of the items on the consent agenda? They will be adopted with 1 vote. Seeing none, call the roll, please.
I will just remind everyone that we've removed item 6 from the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Curator Bradley?
Yes.
Curator Covington?
Yes.
Curator Cups?
Yes.
Curator Downey?
Yes.
Curator Good?
Aye.
Curator Phillips?
Yes.
Curator Ponder?
Aye.
Curator Stewart?
Aye.
Okay. You have 8 votes in favor.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is under general business. Any comments for the good and welfare of the board? Seeing none, the next item under that is the election of the new board chair and vice chair. We elect the chair first. Are there any nominations?
Chairman Good, I would nominate Tom Downing as chair.
Thank you.
Second.
There's a second. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, call the roll.
Curator Bradley?
Yes.
Curator Covington?
Yes.
Curator Cups?
Yes.
Curator Downey?
Abstain.
Curator Good?
Aye.
Curator Henriksen is absent. Curator Phillips?
Yes.
Curator Ponder?
Aye.
Curator Stewart?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion
7 votes
carries.
in favor.
John, congratulations, and we'll get back to that in a minute. The floor is now open for a nomination for a vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Curator Donald L. Cups.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, call the roll.
Curator Bradley?
Yes.
Curator Covington?
Yes.
Curator Cups?
Following the leader, I would abstain.
Curator Downey?
Yes.
Curator Good,
Aye.
Curator Phillips,
Yes.
Curator Ponder,
Aye.
Curator Stewart.
Aye.
7 votes in favor.
Thank you. Motion carries. Don, I think you and I need to go to the podium for a bit of finishing business here.
Well, I think we all have thanked Wayne personally, but Wayne, on behalf of the board, I have a gavel to present you for our deepest appreciation of your year of service as chair. Who else among us could recite history back in the 1960s of how we got here on a certain issue? Who else could provide the kind of wisdom and leadership that Wayne Good has provided us over the last year? We very much appreciate it, Wayne. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we have one more item of business that's become tradition over the last maybe 25 years or so. And I hold up the history book of the first 100 years of the university. And I would admit that I have not read this page to page, but on the other hand, I have perused through it from time to time during the last year that I've had it in my possession. And I, following again tradition, I looked through here as it's been the, I guess the tradition of the outgoing chair to read a paragraph or two that they found inspiring. Now, I looked through it for that purpose, and in all honesty, I didn't find a real inspiring paragraph. I found a lot of information, and it's all kind of linked together with spaces between it. But I did glean from it a piece of history that, in this case, I didn't personally witness. Mr. Vice Chair, I think I'm Chair. But let me read from some thoughts I put down from the book. This is the early days of the university. The first board of curators met and organized in Columbia on October 10th, 1839. There was $20,000 in the treasury devoted to buildings and equipment. In addition, there was an endowment fund of $90,000 with a provision that bank dividends would be added to the balance until it reached $100,000. Thereafter, the dividends would be used to maintain the university. Now, you can quickly figure that 5%, that's about $5,000 a year. So things weren't starting out on a high level, financially anyway. As I think we were all aware, the university was established by the Geyer Act. What I didn't know until I read this in the book, that the act was proven to be so complicated and unworkable that it was repealed by the legislatures in 1841 and 1843. So while we often speak about the Geyer Act, it didn't last very long. The site for the first building was planned where the columns stand today. The curators selected Stephen Hill, architect for the state capitol that was under construction at the time, to draw the plans for Academic Hall. On March 31st, 1840, a contract for the building was signed for $74,494. Not a large sum for a very fine building, but an expenditure that didn't leave much left in the endowment. The cornerstone was laid on July 4th, 1840. By that time, the balance in the endowment was up to $98,000 prior to the expenditure for the building, and the university hired its first president, John Lathrop, for $2,500 a year. With the building under construction, Lathrop's the only employee, it was clear that the earnings on the endowment were not going to go very far. The first appeal to the legislature occurred in 1842 and 43 session. It was based on the argument that the state, as trustees for the federal land grant, was at least morally obligated to guarantee the income on the endowment fund. In other words, they were asking the legislature to provide the $5,000 that would have been there if the endowment fund was in place. The campaign opened with an able address delivered by President Lathrop. However, in the end, he returned to Columbia empty-handed. The university's plight was even more desperate when the next legislature met in 1844. A legislative committee made their first trip to Columbia and reported back with a bill recommending an appropriation of $10,000. But it was not to be from general revenue, but from the funds that might accrue from the federal government. That never happened, so that money didn't come through. Now the story goes on from there, but it was a rough start, and as far as money's concerned, the legislature has always been a tough sell. And I'll end with that, and hopefully, Mr. Chairman-to-be, you will have time to read that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to each of my fellow curators. I'm very honored by the confidence you've shown in me, and I think we just have, as Chairman Good said, a wonderful board. We don't always agree, but when we disagree, we respectfully disagree. And I will try to continue that in my year as chairman. I also, between now and the January meeting, will be reaching out to each of you to talk about direction of the board, governance, committee assignments, and things like that. So please put on your thinking caps between now and the end of the year, and I'll reach out to you probably early in January and talk to you about some issues. But thank you very much for your confidence.
I want to make sure, but I think the next thing before us is a motion to adjourn the open session.
I so move.
Second? Cindy, call the roll.
Curator Bradley?
Yes.
Curator Covington? Yes. Curator Cups?
Yes.
Curator Downing?
Yes.
Curator Good?
Aye.
Curator Phillips?
Yes.
Curator Ponder?
Aye.
Curator Stewart?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, the open session is adjourned. We have a press conference that, Don, will you join the president and I at the press conference? And then we'll be in the room where we were yesterday for executive session.